Welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast channel. So, you know that feeling, right? That kind of quiet exhaustion that settles in after you've spent your day, maybe bending yourself into a pretzel, making sure everyone around you is, comfortable, happy, not upset.
Mm-hmm.
You say yes when your body's just screaming no. You apologize for things you didn't even do, and then somehow you end up feeling, well, invisible, maybe even a bit resentful underneath it all.
It's an incredibly common pattern and for many, it runs much deeper than just being nice. While we often label it people-pleasing or sometimes, codependency,
Right.
for a significant number of people, this behavior is actually a survival strategy.
Yeah.
It's wired right into the nervous system.
A survival strategy. Wow. That phrase really jumped out at me from the material we looked at. It suggests this isn't just a choice you're freely making.
Exactly.
And it points to, well, this concept known as the fawning trauma response.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about fight, flight, and freeze, but fawning.
Mm.
So it's often the lesser known fourth response, and it sounds like it's hugely impactful.
Absolutely huge. And in this deep dive today, our mission really is to um, unpack what fawning is, understand its roots, where it comes from, explore why our bodies kind of default to it,
Yeah.
and importantly, see how reframing it, thinking of it as an adaptive response, something that actually helped you navigate difficult times, how that can create a pathway for healing, and ultimately a stronger connection back to yourself.
That feels so important. This isn't about labeling, is it? It's about giving you, the listener, insight into your own experiences.
Precisely.
It's a fascinating area. And hey, if this resonates with you already, do consider subscribing or leaving a comment. We really do love hearing your thoughts on these topics.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, let's start right there then. What is people-pleasing, or fawning, really, at its core? The material describes it not as genuine kindness, which is lovely, but as an unconscious strategy.
Right. It's driven by this need, often unconscious, to avoid conflict, rejection, or perceived danger. And how do you do that? By trying to manage or regulate other people's emotions.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and it feels compulsive, doesn't it? Like something you have to do to feel okay or to keep the connection going. It's not really a free act of generosity.
Not at all. Think about those common phrases that just pop out.
Yeah.
Saying, sure, no problem, when inwardly it absolutely feels like a massive problem.
Totally. Or jumping to say, I'm sorry, even when, when you haven't done anything wrong at all.
Exactly. Or how about, I don't mind, when every cell in your body does mind.
Yes. And the classic, oh, as long as you're happy, where you're prioritizing their perceived happiness, even if it means completely sidelining your own well-being. It's this automatic overriding, isn't it? Your internal state gets overridden to match or appease someone else.
That overriding is the absolute essence of the fawning response. And it often developed way back in childhood, in situations where a child felt they couldn't physically escape a threat, that's flight.
Right.
Couldn't fight back, that's fight. And maybe couldn't even fully detach or numb out, which is freeze.
Okay.
So the strategy became, okay, if I can just keep the person who feels dangerous or unpredictable happy, maybe then I'll be safe.
That's incredibly insightful. So it's not just about seeking approval, it's deeper. It's about perceived survival.
Yes.
And the material really points to specific childhood origins, like emotional neglect, maybe growing up with emotionally immature caregivers.
Caregivers who might have actually relied on the child for their emotional regulation.
Wow. Or experiencing inconsistent affection, where love felt really conditional, like you had to earn it.
Or even in situations of, say, simpler neglect, where just being quiet and undemanding felt safer than needing anything or asking for anything to be met.
Right. So in those environments, this core belief can get deeply, deeply ingrained. My needs, they don't matter. Their needs come first. That's the price of admission. That's how I stay connected.
Exactly. And for many, as one piece we looked at put it so powerfully, love meant disappearing.
Oof, that's heavy.
It is. You learned that the safest way to be seen, or maybe just to belong, was to become what others needed you to be, to kind of shrink your own desires, your feelings.
And this is how someone might become that easy child, right? The constant helper, the family peacemaker, the one who just never seemed to need anything for themselves.
Which just reinforces that painful, often unconscious belief. You have to abandon your authentic self just to belong. Like your true self feels unacceptable or maybe unsafe or just too burdensome.
Okay, so this isn't just about, learned behaviors or beliefs, though. It's biological, too. The connection to the nervous system feels really key here, and the material brings up polyvagal theory.
Yes, very much so. Polyvagal theory helps us understand that our nervous system is constantly scanning our environment, especially social environments, for cues. Cues of safety or cues of danger.
Right, like a background process.
Exactly. And when those social environments feel unpredictable or maybe unsafe, the body can automatically, unconsciously activate this fawning response. It's a physiological state, not just a conscious choice you're making in the moment.
So it's like the body goes into this mode of social appeasement,
Yeah.
like a nervous system masking.
That's a great way to put it. Nervous system masking. You project calm or agreement, even if internally you're feeling really activated or stressed. And this involves what's called emotional overfunctioning, where you basically take on the responsibility for managing the emotional temperature of the room or the other person.
Wow. So your body defaults to this survival mode, this need to please, until it really learns through new experiences that safety is possible without having to constantly perform or appease.
And over time, this survival strategy can become so integrated that it actually starts to shape your identity. We see how people-pleasing gets tangled up with how you see yourself.
How so?
Well, you might genuinely believe you're just easygoing, when actually, if you dig a bit deeper, you might be deeply conflict avoidant.
Right. Or you describe yourself as flexible, when really you're kind of disconnected from your own preferences because expressing them felt unsafe at some point.
Precisely. Or you truly believe, oh, I just want everyone to be happy, without necessarily recognizing the underlying driver is that their happiness feels like your personal safety net.
That makes sense. And when your sense of self-worth gets tied up in that external approval, in keeping the peace, then speaking your truth or setting even a small boundary can feel like a massive betrayal, like you're betraying that identity.
Or it feels like a direct path to rejection, which feels terrifying.
That sense of imminent rejection, yeah. That feeling when you even think about disappointing someone, it can bring up incredible anxiety, can't it?
Absolutely. And this often ties right back to those earlier experiences, maybe childhood, where anger or disapproval from caregivers felt genuinely dangerous or really unpredictable. Your nervous system basically learned to equate someone else being upset even slightly with potential harm or abandonment.
Okay, so let's make this really concrete. What does this look like day to day? What are some examples of the fawn response in action that maybe you, listening, might recognize?
Well, saying yes reflexively, almost automatically, when your body is just shouting no is a big one. Excessive apologizing, saying sorry for tiny things or things that clearly aren't your fault.
Yeah, I see that. Avoiding asking for help, too, because you don't want to be a burden.
Definitely. Constantly over-explaining yourself or justifying your choices, even when nobody asked you to.
Feeling personally responsible for other people's moods. That urge to constantly try and fix things for them or cheer them up, even when it's not your job.
Struggling hugely with making independent decisions because you're always running these mental scenarios about how others might react or what they might think.
Right. Or taking the blame just to smooth things over and keep the peace, even when it feels really unfair.
And yes, this shows up so intensely in relationships, particularly romantic ones. Losing yourself in the relationship, avoiding necessary but potentially difficult conversations.
Feeling that intense anxiety when your partner is even just slightly withdrawn or upset.
Exactly, all classic signs.
And the hidden costs of living this way, they sound really profound. The material talks about chronic fatigue, this constant background hum of anxiety.
Hypervigilance, yeah. Always scanning the environment. And often there's this suppressed anger that doesn't really have anywhere to go, so it festers into resentment.
And underneath it all, a deep lack of authentic connection, maybe. Even if you are liked or needed or appreciated.
There's this subtle, painful sense of invisibility. Because what's being seen and responded to is the performance, the mask, not the real you underneath.
Which leads to that really poignant underlying question that the material raised. If I stop performing, would they still love me? Even when logically you might know you are loved.
That uncertainty cuts deep.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, okay, how do we begin to shift this ingrained pattern? You mentioned the reframing is crucial. Fawning is not a flaw. It was an adaptation.
Yes, that's the absolute starting point. You weren't broken. You were incredibly resourceful. You were doing the best you could to survive challenging circumstances. There is absolutely no shame in having developed this pattern. Understanding it as an adaptation that once served a vital purpose, but maybe isn't necessary for survival anymore in your current, hopefully safer, environment. That understanding is step one. It creates space.
And from there, the material points to awareness. building awareness is the foundation for healing. It sounds simple, maybe, but it's about really starting to notice the pattern in action.
Exactly. When do you find yourself overriding your own needs? Can you catch that moment? When does that familiar wave of guilt wash over you after you actually manage to say no to something?
Do you find yourself automatically anticipating someone else's potential disappointment and already scrambling to fix it before it even happens?
Or do you immediately jump to regulate their feelings before you even pause to check in with your own, just noticing? That moment of awareness, creating that tiny pause between the trigger, like someone asking for
Yeah.
something, and the automatic response, like saying yes, that's where the possibility for change, for healing, opens up.
Okay, but since this is so wired into the nervous system, as you said, healing can't just be intellectual, right? It can't just be thinking our way out of it. It has to involve the body.
100%. This is where somatic or body-based practices become absolutely vital. The goal is essentially to teach your body on a physiological level that saying no or setting a boundary or even disappointing someone,
Hmm.
it's not actually a life-threatening event anymore. Not like it might have felt way back when.
Okay, so what are some simple tools, maybe from the material, that can help with that body-based regulation, things people can actually try?
Yeah, there are some really accessible ones, things like grounding touch, simply placing a hand on your heart or maybe your belly, just to soothe your physical self when you feel that wave of anxiety or guilt rising. Orientation is another one, just intentionally looking around the room you're actually in right now and maybe naming 5 things you see. It sounds basic, but it helps anchor you in the present moment, reminding your body where, and importantly, when you are. You're not back there, you're here now.
Using safe statements or affirmations too, right?
Yeah.
Quietly telling yourself things like, I'm safe right now.
Yes, or I don't have to earn love, or my needs matter too. Gentle somatic movement can also be really helpful for releasing trapped tension, like literally shaking out your hands or arms, doing some gentle stretches, or even just swaying slightly side to side
Okay.
and activating the vagus nerve, which is so key for regulating our nervous system. Simple things we can all do. Humming, singing, even just taking a few deep, slow exhales where the out breath is longer than the in breath. These signal safety to your body.
It's about consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
These practices, used consistently, help build that felt sense of internal safety that isn't solely dependent on getting external approval.
Exactly, you're building internal resources.
So then, boundary building. That feels like the practical application of this healing work, making it visible.
It is. The material frames boundaries beautifully as where your healing becomes visible, tangible. And the key is you don't have to start with huge confrontational boundaries. That can feel overwhelming.
Right, start small. Practice simple phrases like,
Things like, let me get back to you on that, buys you time, or actually, I'm not available right now.
okay, I need a little space.
Perfect. The material even offers some useful scripts like, I really care about you, and I also need to honor what I need right now. Or maybe, I'm learning to check in with myself before I commit to things. It signals you're doing something different.
And that guilt we talked about. If it comes up after setting a boundary, which it probably will,
Very likely, especially at first.
it's important to remember what we discussed earlier, that guilt is often a trauma echo, right? It's a leftover feeling from a time when having needs or saying no genuinely felt unsafe. It doesn't mean you've actually done something wrong now.
Precisely. So when the guilt hits, use your regulation tools. Place a hand on your heart, take a deep breath, remind your body, I am safe now. The key with boundaries is pacing. Respect your nervous system. It takes gentle, consistent repetition for your body to truly start believing that honesty and having limits won't lead to catastrophe or abandonment.
This whole journey, then, it really sounds like reclaiming your identity beyond just being the pleaser, the helper. The material stresses that people-pleasing is who you learn to be.
Not who you inherently are. It's a process of self-returning, you could call it.
I like that, self-returning.
It involves gently, curiously, asking yourself those foundational questions again, maybe for the first time in a long time. What do I actually want in this situation? What does my body need right now? Forget everyone else for a second. What activities or interactions genuinely bring me joy, not just fulfill someone else's expectation or keep the peace?
Journaling could be really helpful here, couldn't it? With prompts like,
Definitely. Prompts like, if I didn't feel responsible for managing others' feelings, what would I do with my time and energy? Or when do I feel most authentically like myself? Or maybe exploring what kinds of boundaries would feel supportive and nourishing for me, rather than feeling like I'm punishing myself or being difficult.
and framing this process not as selfish, which is also the fear,
Right, the immediate fear.
but as necessary.
Yeah.
Necessary for real well-being and, ironically perhaps, for more genuine connection in the long run.
Absolutely, because when you stop people-pleasing out of that compulsive fear, you actually become capable of more authentic love and kindness, because it's coming from a place of internal fullness and choice, not from depletion, resentment, and fear.
That's such a powerful distinction. It shifts the focus from performance, always performing for safety, to presence.
Yeah.
Being truly present with yourself and others.
Exactly. Presence over performance.
And speaking of genuine connection, there's often that fear, isn't there? That setting boundaries or saying no will somehow make you unlovable or incapable of being in a healthy, loving relationship. That was one of the common questions that came up.
Yeah, it's a huge fear, but the reality supported by the material is actually the opposite. True love, healthy relationships, they require boundaries. They require honesty and mutual self-respect. People-pleasing, while it might temporarily smooth things over or avoid conflict.
It prevents others from truly knowing you.
Exactly. And it prevents you from experiencing genuine connection based on who you really are, not just who you're pretending to be to keep them happy.
So it actually allows for more genuine love.
Yes, because it's real. It's based on truth. And tied to that, it is absolutely okay, in fact, necessary to stop helping when you feel overwhelmed or depleted. Setting limits isn't cruel, it's clarity. It protects your own well-being and prevents you from burning out completely, which ultimately serves no one.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, the core message that really shines through from the material feels incredibly clear and maybe quite liberating for some.
What stands out for you?
That you are not responsible for managing the emotional world of everyone around you. That your purpose isn't to make yourself small or silent, just to feel safe or accepted.
Beautifully put. You are here to belong to yourself first, with your own voice, your own needs, your own truth intact.
And the Fawning response, while it was once maybe a brilliant, necessary protective shield that helped you navigate really difficult circumstances, it's something you can gently, compassionately begin to move beyond now, if you choose.
You have the opportunity and you have the capacity within you to cultivate something deeper and ultimately stronger than that old shield. Genuine self-respect, real self-connection, and growing self-trust.
You don't need to earn your place in the world by pleasing everyone.
Yeah.
You already belong, just as you are.
So maybe something to consider as you move through your week, something to reflect on from this deep dive. How does understanding this idea of the fawning response maybe change your perspective on past relationships or perhaps some challenges you're facing right now?
Does seeing it as an adaptation rather than a flaw shift how you feel about yourself, even just a little?
And maybe think about what is just one small step, maybe a tiny one, you could take this week to prioritize connecting with yourself, checking in with your own needs or feelings, over automatically jumping to manage someone else's perceived emotions or expectations.
It really is a gentle, ongoing journey, isn't it? This process of self-returning.
Absolutely, gentle and ongoing.